William Fredericks from Bronxville, New York. I joined the society in 1999, and I became a member of the standing committee perhaps 7 or 8 years ago, and then was one of 2 New Hampshire Society members of the Board of Governors of the American Independence Museum. I'm a collateral descendant of Lieutenant John Wheelock of Colonel Timothy Bedell's New Hampshire Regiment. John Wheelock was the son of Eleazar Wheelock, who is famous for having been the founder of Dartmouth College. And I believe that his grandfather actually founded the first private school in the colonies some generations earlier. So I think a 7th great grandnephew of Lieutenant Colonel Wheelock, whose primary military contribution in the Revolution was being part of the Bennington and Saratoga campaigns, which of course led to the great victory at the Battle of Saratoga. The family thought that I would come in as a descendant of another gentleman whose name was Israel Morey, who was a fighter in the French and Indian Wars, and was a patriot and was a member of the Committee of Public Safety here in one of the New Hampshire towns. But it turned out that he was militia only, and he was really sort of retired. It was merely sort of honorary general. And I remember speaking to Edward Woods, Dr. Woods, who's just an institution in the New Hampshire Society, has been chairman of the membership committee for many, many years. And I put in all this paperwork showing my descent from Israel Morey. He said, I'm so sorry, he was really just militia, he didn't serve in the Continental Army, which is a requirement. But thanks for your interest, I'm so sorry. And I made some casual offhand comment that, Jay, I wish I could get in by being a descendant of Eleazar Wheelock, the other New Hampshire old line name. He said, oh, Eleazar Wheelock, his son was John Wheelock. We've never had a Wheelock in the society. Oh, that's fantastic. Can you send me information? So with my mother's prodding and Dr. Woods's encyclopedic knowledge of New Hampshire history and who had served from New Hampshire in the Revolutionary War, I ended up getting in. I think that the hereditary connection provides a rationale for the society, and the society has a mission of preserving the memory of the American Revolution and those preserving the history of the Revolution, which is of course part of the legacy of all Americans, whether their forebears came here in the 17th century or whether they're immigrants as of yesterday. It's part of our shared tradition and values which inure to all Americans. But it's, to me, the fact that we support this museum is what really validates the role of the organization. And I would have much less of a connection to the New Hampshire Society of Cincinnati if the society didn't have a very tangential and real commitment to the ongoing work of the American Independence Museum, which I think is sharing the common legacy with the public at large, and that's certainly our most important work. The broader society has provided a lot of support for something called the American Revolution Institute, which again I think is trying to move the educational mission of preserving the legacy of the Revolution and moving that into a more public forum, a more accessible forum. That I think really is the raison d'etre. I mean, certainly in the 18th century, looking after fellow officers, I suspect, not having been there 250 years ago, but I suspect that was a very important part of the original society. Our mission today is an educational one, and to devote our resources such as they are to the public good and the public educational mission that we have. Personally, I think that George Washington, leaving aside the history of the American Revolution, but George Washington as our founder, I think has real relevance in today's political era. George Washington was the first president, of course, and I think most historians would agree that he was very cautious, very pragmatic person. Cautious in the sense that I think he understood as president, he was setting a precedent for all future presidents and how the country would be governed. He's very careful, very sensitive, I think, to public opinion, how the president was perceived, how he should be addressed. But Mr. President ended up being sufficient for George Washington. I think that his vision for the country and his commitment to values of freedom and democracy continue to come down to us today. And I think that view, albeit being an 18th century view, is an important mix in terms of assessing the values of modern society. For the museum to be successful, it obviously has to flourish in sort of a broader realm. It can't just be the creature of New Hampshire society. It has to be part of the town of Exeter, the county of Rockingham, the state of New Hampshire, the broader New England region. To know that year-round in season that there are folks in the greater Exeter community who are carrying on that mission, because it's not a mission of the society or any one group of people. It's really part of a much broader mission and vision, which hopefully can include and touch a lot of people. And I think the museum's outreach to school kids, the traveling trunk program, and whatnot, probably pleases me more than anything. Because I think you want to teach kids young about all sorts of history, and this is real, tangible history. You sit in a room such as this where General Washington had breakfast in 1789, and you can read things in books, but it's also nice to have a place, I think, where you can come and actually say, George Washington was here. Various patriots were here. Everyone played a role to bring the country where we are today. So it's the connection of the past and the present for me, and to bring history alive. And, gives us something to be very, very proud of.